your neighbor. These are the people who are digging their hands into the dirt and are going to begin to take the first step. Independence from a corporate industrial food system. Take the first step toward a community-based regional food system that focuses on the health of our bodies, the health of the planet, the health of the soil, and respect to the farmers and the food for the precious gift that it is. Yeah. It's not a new idea. This is where we were in 1943, right? San Francisco had one of the best victory garden programs in the country. We had hundreds of urban productive gardens like this throughout the city. That's how you start to solve the food crisis, by digging in.
If food isn't brought to the forefront, the people are going to bring it to the forefront, because people are asking questions, they're getting involved in organizations, and you get those little bubbles in the water, a few minutes later the water's just boiling over. The bubbles are in the water.
The people here in this country are already seeing that the system, the way it is not working. What are you going to do as an alternative? There are other models of it, ways in which we're going to make our systems more socially just, more economically viable, more environmentally sound, and more important than anything, more resilient.
You could compare it to if you're painting or trying to mix colors to get a certain new color. I think we're trying to get a more intense color for the good food movement right now. And by linking up all the different people, it's giving us more colors to work with, richer colors, and I think more power in the system.
It's a challenge for everybody to look deeper and see that the issues are really complicated. They're not black and white. And we need to look at every element as it is now and really look forward and see, well, where do we want to get to and how can we get there?
We need to look at putting new community institutions into place that are part of the solution rather than part of the problem. All we can do is change course. Right where we are, stop and shift and do things differently.
We were put on this earth to eat. That's it. And we just added all stuff. Whoever created this, there were some happy people on this planet, give them some good food to eat and let them go.
It seems to me that people get it when I put it this way. The 22-year-old has lived through 54% of all the oil ever burned. The 10-year-old has lived through a quarter. Now that points out the speed that this is coming on.
The solution then was bring more fossil fuel to bear on agriculture. Step up production, more monoculture, more pesticide to support the monoculture, more chemical fertilizer to support the monoculture, drive down the price of food. And it worked. We have been eating oil for 30 years, 40 years. When we began industrializing agriculture, we were taking labor out of the farm and replacing it with fossil fuel and technology. Most of the big innovations in agriculture were fossil fuel products, and they were very much the products of World War II. We took the munitions, ammonium nitrate fertilizer is bomb fuel, and we converted that to fertilizer. The same factories that were making bombs one day, and nerve gases, which became our pesticides. What those technologies allow you to do is monocultures, very large fields of the same thing. Moving from diversity to this monoculture allowed you to greatly increase production. Monocultures are also supremely vulnerable to pests, so you can't have a monoculture without pesticides to defend them. And this has been our policy. We have rewarded farmers for planting monoculture. If you are a corn farmer, we'll give you money to grow corn and soy, but if you want to put in a row of broccoli, that land is permanently ineligible for subsidies. It's illegal for you to diversify your farm.
For the past maybe 50, 60 years, our society has viewed food very much as a commodity, and it's been mostly valued in terms of the economics of it, and it's also seen as fuel for our bodies. We have to gas up, and then we can go a few more hours and we have to gas up again. Eat so that you can do the thing that you're supposed to do. You can be productive. There's something really, really missing. There's this hole where the heart should be in our society. And yet in our society, we somehow think that this, fuel can come in like a little paper bag out of a window and drive through and we can gobble it up and then we can move on. It's not just destroying our health, that kind of fast food culture. I think it creates unhappiness and stress, and you start looking for what's that thing that's going to make me feel better. You're this prime target for advertisers to say, oh, here's what's missing. I really just think our bodies are just chronically deprived of the nutrients that they need.
The food system is slowly poisoning all of us. It's almost like a silent, self-administered genocide for the population, and we don't notice. If we just ate real food most of the time, we'd probably be a whole lot healthier. But then you have to figure out what's real food. And what's real food doesn't come from concentrated animal feeding operations, and it doesn't come from the big poultry companies.
I think people have to realize that we're in a deep crisis here in this country, not only economic, but ecological and cultural and social and food. There's a food crisis here in terms of the quality of the food. There's a problem of obesity, so there's a lot of people that are eating too much and there's a lot of people that are eating very little.
It is a dysfunctional food system, which works very well for a few corporations and works very poorly for the majority of the people of the world, and is beginning to work worse and worse for the people here in the United States.
It's amazing the amount of denial around the problems on this planet, or our potential to screw this planet up. But I hope the world doesn't go all Mad Max on us. It could happen. Okay, let's go. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on.
What is that?
Goats.
Goats, huh?
Yeah. My first choice is to be here in the city and help people see how they can grow food. I hope that we're like a seed of possibility that might sprout.
These beets, I used to hate beets as a kid. And I started growing them, developed a real taste for it. I learned how to do this in Mexico, in a garden program. It was all organic. They liked organic because it cut their costs down and raised their yields, which is the exact opposite of what you hear here in the United States. Most of the farmers that I still work with today are organic farmers. I don't think any of them are certified. It's much too expensive for them. They're not interested in an export market anyway. They're interested in feeding their own people. I think it's good to put your hands in the dirt.
Honestly, we have to start thinking like squirrels about our food and the food system that we have here in Oakland. That we should have little micro distribution points in our neighborhoods, where there's always fresh food available. We should have like mad gardens like this that are in their various stages of development, growing food, good food to people, and educating people about food. As long as we're thinking about food and it's part of our conversations in our communities, I think that over time those sources will be there and people will think more wisely about how they treat the earth and how they interact with people, because all that is all connected,
Get the blood. You want the blood? You don't need no blood?
You got the hand sanitizer?
Walk on the side. Huh?
Got the hand sanitizer?
Yeah, you can go to the bathroom and use the soap in the bathroom. That's the hand sanitizer. The reason, why do you think we're weeding? Why do we have to get this grass out of here?
So it won't kill the strawberries.
Exactly. So the grass eats up nutrients that the strawberries need to grow. Many hands make life work. Y'all heard that before? Anybody?
Nope.
You know what I'm talking about though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What I love about strawberries is you don't have to plant them every year. You just plant them one time, they come back. They love you. Hey, what's with the language?
I had sort of made a decision that I wasn't going to have children. We kind of have these abstract ideas, about population, and the question is it ethical to add another person to the planet, and also is it ethical to offer this planet to this person that you care about so much? But then I got pregnant, and I'm now just completely in love with my baby. It gives you a different sense of urgency around what you see going on around you. Everybody out there is somebody's baby. And we all need these things. We all need good food to eat. We all need clean water to drink. We all need clean air to breathe. These things aren't optional. They're really not optional.
I got involved because I saw immediate needs. I saw the immediate needs of people who hungry. I was hungry one day. I said, "We got it hungry." And I said, "Okay, let me go in there and look." So I ate that day and I said, "Well, how can I not just get served, now I can serve?" And you're gonna always deal with it unless you create the paradigm shift, the largest systems. Only thing that connects everything, our food systems, because everybody eats.
The Bay Area is my place. I grew up here. So this is a place that's deeply written into my cells and into my soul. My grandfather, he had a corner store and an apartment on top, and he raised a family. The more supermarket chains and the more concentration areas in the food industry, the fewer opportunities there are for people like my grandfather in today's world to do what he did. I think that the way our international industrial food system works is destroying local economies, not just in the flatlands of Oakland, but all around the world. If we can't fix things in Oakland, and if we can't fix things in the flatlands, we have absolutely no business trying to fix things anyplace else.
The vision is huge, and to accomplish it is huge. Baby carrots. If we don't whittle ours down with the machine. Because we cannot change the economic system as it is right now. We said, well, let's try to take food out of the economic system a little bit and go back to self-sufficiency as a concept. The woman who I'm working for, she just decided that she wanted to use her backyard to grow vegetables. And so it turns out we can have enough to serve probably 20 people in this backyard.
In those first 8 to 10 months, Alameda Farm was kind of a guerrilla garden because we didn't actually have permission from the city who owned the land. I actually didn't know very much about farming at all. It was mostly due to my friend Justin, who was also involved. He was basically teaching the rest of us, who were all amateurs, how to do what we were doing. We just started going there and just tried to figure out, okay, how can we start doing this now?
My greatest hope is that we'll actually learn how to farm with nature, and now is the moment when that struggle over the future is being understood. Food production is the most impactful human activity on the planet Earth, probably. I mean, in terms of landscape impact, there's nothing like agriculture. Because we have a generation of farmers who weren't taught those methodologies, and that frame of mind that we're going to work with nature. They were taught to basically battle with nature. But we understand more now because humans are evolving. Our knowledge is evolving. Our understanding of nature is so much greater than it was even 30 years ago. I think it's the greatest challenge that humans face now. How to actually produce food and not destroy the base upon which civilization exists, which is the natural world.
This is a lot easier of a problem because 7 times 2x is just x minus 6. So I would like for us to talk about chapter 12, but also I know you guys have been behaving better than I've ever seen you behave. So I will share some money with you guys. Yay! So I only have 5 monies, so that means every other person. Can I get one that fills all those ones? Well, not this one. So I grew up different, but I think that made me question the world because I think when people approach me, they see me as someone who can't do something or having limits that are their projection. I often break people's perceptions of what they think can be done with just a few fingers. My great-grandfather was born on a pig farm in these hills. He raised a lot of livestock on small lots like this. My great-grandfather fed the family during the Depression so that they could survive during that harsh economic time, which we may be on the precipice of right now. I hope not, but the world does seem kind of precarious.
Because the depression is coming. We ain't food. And when it comes, cities that have not put infrastructure like that in, you're gonna see anarchy. You're gonna have poor people who can't afford food, and if they could afford it, the shelves are gonna be bare. This generation is not built for a depression. So when that pressure hits, people react in all sorts of crazy ways.
I think there's plenty over on that side. Like, did you get the broccoli? You want to put the broccoli in? What's that? Yeah, the big broccoli radish, yeah. Here, I'll show you what the broccoli is going to be. In about 2004, I was really intrigued by this notion of peak oil and the fact that our food system and most of our systems are based on cheap fossil fuel energy. And I was really concerned with how I personally and my community were going to respond to increasingly expensive foodstuffs.
Clearly a lot of it was on this macro level that I felt like I had no control over, the federal government, even our city governments, things that they could do. But really what I thought is, my experience was working grassroots with people and having people kind of change their existence through direct action. And so what I felt like was, out of all the issues, transportation and energy and all these things, that food was something that people could really do. I was really focused on, okay, I want to start a food growing project somewhere, and what I realized was that the space next to my mom's house was abandoned and didn't have anyone there, and was a perfect location to do it. Alameda is an interesting place because to one side is the neighborhood, the Excelsior, the other side is Vernal Heights, both of which have long been kind of working class. And then right at the bottom, there's the low-income housing project, situated, of course, right next to the freeway.
It's just rough out here. It's real rough out here. Sometimes people can't come in and out of their doors. Sometimes
just to live out here, to get along with people, sometimes you have to blend in with the community. Even though at times you don't want to, but you get trapped.
We were trying to do organizing with the community to figure out what was their needs, what did they want to see there, and for the most part what we heard was jobs. It's not something that we as young punk anarchists who are looking to grow food had an ability to offer.
They want to work. And that's what helped keep these kids in school, get good grades. They want to work.
It took a little while till we started meeting with people in the community and also got in contact with people in the Rec and Park department. Eventually we got funding to have a youth program where kids from the community were actually being trained in ecological horticulture, learning the different systems, the irrigation, how to plant, landscaping, all that stuff, and getting paid to do so. We also do environmental education, and so there's school groups, people come out from all parts of the city, even sometimes people from outside of the city who come out and work a few hours doing whatever tasks need to be done, and then at the end of the day, we harvest all the produce that's available and distribute it to all the volunteers.
It's a farm in the city. We got a little country in the city. You ain't gotta go down the highway. All you gotta do is walk up here in the farm in San Francisco.
Divided by 5 acres. We have the flat lines, which is here. This is east Oakland, all the way to west Oakland. 95% of all homicides occur in this area. Obesity, diabetes, chronic illness, you name it.
In Oakland, we have what some people call food deserts and other people call food apartheid. Because you have huge areas, neighborhoods, complete neighborhoods, which basically can't get good food. They can't get fresh vegetables. They can't get whole grains. They can only get this cheap, processed, packaged food, which is actually expensive. They've got to travel miles and miles to find a supermarket. And oftentimes those supermarkets don't have the best food either.
So what's the agenda here? Well, the agenda is to bring some folks who haven't seen the store before to see the store, and then to talk about some ideas about how this could be a fresh, healthy, affordable local food store.
I have a question, like, how long will the process take poner a trabajar this place going?
Necesitamos el apoyo de la gente.
We need the support of the people.
They're putting pressure
Estamos para que vemos esta tienda.
They haven't bought into the idea of a community restaurant.
Ellos todavía no están de acuerdo con la idea de que when the city wants to demolish, what's going to happen to the place, to the spot here?
They fence it off.
Lo van a cerrar.
And they wait for a developer who can come in and build some housing.
Una constructora venga y que edifique casas o algo.
Yo pienso que sería mejor hacer una tienda comunitaria.
I think it would be better if we could just build a community store with stuff with organic and better.
You need this story, but the only problem we're gonna have is that we gotta work out something with the food bank. Because the food bank provides this neighborhood with food 4 times a week, free food. And most of the people in this neighborhood are Latino, and they like organic food. I think they got experience in the field, they know that all those pesticides don't do these foods no good.
And we need to bring in healthy foods so that we can start having choices to fight the health problems that we're going on. So that murder rate can go down.
I grew up in a neighborhood like that. I can remember at the age of 5, my friend Crystal, her father was, a known drug dealer. His brains got blew out when I was, 7 years old in the middle of the street, 9 o'clock at night. My brother, who sold drugs with a neighborhood drug dealer down the street, and eventually died from drug overdose. And he learned all this stuff from these guys, and ultimately died from that. People experience stuff like that, they don't want to come back. The reason why I came back is because if I'm going to do this anywhere in the world, I better start in my own neighborhood. I better start where I grew up, and that makes the most sense.
How we doing, everybody? All right. Everybody here?
Yeah.
Is everyone here right now?
Yeah, we here.
Right. My name is Jason Hardy. I am a longtime resident here of Oakland. I grew up at 9303 E Street down in Alphabet City. Folks know where that is?
Yeah, sure do.
Tonight is just a big overview of what the Hope Collaborative is about, what we hope to achieve, some things like that. So we just want to give you a lot of information at once.
We found that people travel 20 to 40 minutes one way to get to a supermarket. And most people do shop in supermarkets. People outside of the neighborhoods do not know this. They think you do not cook. They think you do not eat healthy food or care. How many people don't care about what they eat? Thank you. How many people here cook meals at home? Right. How many people here want fresh, healthy, affordable food? How many people here like what you find in the corner stores? Thank you. The point is, the corner stores, as you already know, don't have much fresh food, and what they sell is expensive. What happens when the husband has to go to work and there's only one car? Where does the mother go to get milk? Right, so we want to make sure that that corner store has healthy, affordable food. So what can we do? What solutions can we find? And that's what we're all searching for.
The amount of land that is available in Oakland, where you have the most food insecure people, there's 200 hectares. That's about 400 acres of available land. But that land should be given to the people so that they can produce food.
It really did come out of just living in this community, seeing the conditions. There are no grocery stores here, and there are a wealth of corner liquor stores. I saw that, and I also saw that there's all this vacant land. There are all these empty lots that are just sitting here. Those empty lots to me looked like, wow, gardens. It was responding to what seemed like what people wanted. We started growing food here, and then it wasn't enough, and so then we said, okay, let's see if we can borrow some more empty lots, and that wasn't enough. And it always fluttered, like it was never difficult. People would always ask us, how did you do outreach to the community? And we never did outreach, you know, it was word of mouth.
The seeds for arugula.
This is this part of growing gardens, the seeds.
We are really about how can we grow, really significantly grow produce in the city? How can we do that while involving our community?
I see canneries here in Oakland. I see all this fruit that's dropping on the ground. I see youth out there gathering it up. I see them working with adults and canning and preserving that food. I see that food being distributed. I see this whole food system being connected here in Oakland. And I see the people leading that charge.
Recent financial report. So in spite of all our difficulties last week, we did really, really well.
We had 360 orders for $25,023.72. So our adjusted gross is $22,968.47.
The whole idea of the community supported kitchen was to create a model that would be replicable throughout the country. We're a worker-owned cooperative, so there's 5 worker owners, and we all have an equal share in the business. We ended up financing the kitchen through loans from members of the community, rather than, we'd never had a bank loan, and we didn't go to a bank. Anybody can come down and see how things were made. We're not about hiding recipes, we're about sharing information. That kind of accessibility into a kitchen is very unusual. That not only can you see, but you can actually come in and do it. You know, here's an apron, here's a knife, you know, let's chop some broccoli. We are very committed to supporting local farms and provide the kind of nutrient-dense food for families that they can't get anywhere else based on traditional diets. One of the things that we do a lot of in the kitchen is we make bone broths. Bone broths are throughout the world known to be incredibly nourishing. They're incredibly rich in minerals that your body really needs, calcium particularly. The term is nutrient dense, and they are, every calorie is packed with nutrients. That's the idea of nutrient density. So if you eat a lot of broth, you need less meat. Your body needs less protein. And so this is a way that traditional cultures throughout the world nourish themselves economically and ecologically. The idea was not the boneless, skinless chicken breast or the meat patty. You use the whole animal, you use the organ meats, you use the fat, you use the bones, you make broth. Making food this way, processing food this way, is really a lost art in our society. But at Three Stone Hearth, we're trying to rediscover those arts.
Butchering an animal for me is a very mixed emotional time. I feel a lot of sadness, and then I feel also a certain amount of respect for that animal and a responsibility. But also I feel a certain connectedness to that animal. It's always tense and difficult, and I usually try to get the animal to be calm and relaxed. I meet a lot of meat eaters who are freaked out that I have such a connected relationship to the animals that I eat. Like they say, oh, I could never do that. And I think that's a representation of our alienation in our society, that people don't really know where their meat's coming from. And as I talked about injustices in the world and people looking the other way, I think people also do that with meat. They want to eat meat, but they don't really want to know where it came from. And I think that's wrong. So I feel like as a meat eater, it's my place to try and educate people of where does meat come from. And yes, this bunny is meat, and those boy baby goats back there are meat, and that's where it comes from. People should face that or consider being a vegetarian. Nature is cruel and kind, it's beautiful and ugly all at the same time, and we need it to survive.
Having done Alameda, I was immersed in urban agriculture, which was great, but I wanted to kind of immerse myself more in what you might call serious farming. It taught me a lot about my own interest in farming, and I realized that what I liked more than anything else was the knowledge of it, was understanding it, was practicing it to know more, to get feedback from the actual experience, but not to spend my entire life doing it. I definitely think of myself as a city person primarily. After this experience living rurally, it's kind of been more defined for me.
2007, I quit my job, I went to UC Santa Cruz Farm and Gardening Program, and I got a certificate. I learned how to farm organically and grow food organically. And I wanted to take that knowledge and that skill and pass it on to the students here at the Alternative High. People at Berkeley High have determined that they can't fit in somehow at Berkeley High, and they send them here. That says to me they need more. If they're not making it in mainstream at Berkeley High, you separate them out. When you give them more services, it's just the opposite. They give them less. 5 years ago, they didn't even have any food. They didn't have any lunch.
We're going to do bean soup today. Now, remember last week I was talking about vegetables can be used for breakfast. There's nothing wrong with vegetables for breakfast. There's nothing wrong with soup for breakfast either. When you eat Lucky Charms and they got a pink charm in it, where do you think that color comes from?
Artificial flavors?
Artificial flavors. Open up your mind, try things. Don't just say, oh, I've never done it before and I feel fun to do it. You always feel fun doing something the first time. All right, I'm here.
In 1978, I was a single mom and my daughter was having health problems. And she developed petit mal seizures. She wasn't sleeping properly. She had behavior problems. She wasn't doing well in kindergarten.
All of the products on your table have lists of what's in it. I want you, as a group, at your table, to come up with how many grams of sugar are in the products at your table.
I took her to the doctor, and they said, we don't know what's wrong with your daughter, but we're going to give her Ritalin to control the seizures. And I was like, no. I mean, if you don't know what's wrong with her, how do you know what you're giving her?
120 grams of sugar in this cup.
126.
Excuse me, 126. Let's make sure we get it right.
We realized that she was getting severe allergic reactions to processed food, particularly petrochemicals, artificial color, artificial flavor, and preservatives that have petroleum as their base. So we changed the way we eat from that day to this, my whole family actually. And it took about 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks, and all of her symptoms went away. And I realized there was a difference in me. You know, I was different. Learning how to read labels was my first food awareness exercise in my life. So this heightened my awareness about food, the importance of food, and to think that something you put in your mouth can affect your behavior. It was a very revolutionary idea.
So this is all fruit smoothie. It doesn't have any yogurt or anything. How many of you ever been to Jamba Juice? Yeah. You like Jamba Juice? Yeah. I think this is better than Jamba Juice. This is just my opinion. No, I ain't giving you no double. So this is what I'm loving about the smoothies. It's a premium. You guys all come here trying to scam smoothie data. Yeah. I got a witness. Oh, no. He worked, but he didn't work double. The only one who got double. The only one who took, but I made an announcement. Didn't I? Did I make an announcement? Did I not? Whoever read with me is double smoothie. I made an announcement. I did.
This is what I do. I said, oh my goodness, you guys like the smoothies? Smoothies are great. We'll have strawberries in the smoothie this summer. Before you get out here, we'll have some strawberries. But we won't have strawberries if you don't get out here and weed this garden right now. And so it's always back to the strawberries or something that they can relate to and value right at this moment and understand. And I'm trying to connect the importance of farming and gardening to their stomachs directly, to the table, to their experience, and then of course their behavior.
So what are some of the vitamins that are in the fruit that we eat? What are the fruit? Anybody vitamin C, you put the oranges in? Yeah, vitamin C, absolutely. Now, what is vitamin C good for? The taste, the immune system. Immune system, absolutely. Who else? You can get up in the morning, make a blender full, drink some of it, put some in a container or a thermos and bring it to school and have 40 ounces. 40 ounces, okay, that's a lot.
Food, for me, it should be a subject at school, period. Not somebody who's going to be a pre-med student or a nutritionist. No, everybody learns about nutrition just part of their daily day. And that does happen when you have a garden. The good gardener is also talking about the importance of nutrition. How do you harvest this food? How do you prepare this food? What does it do for your body? What's the essential vitamin in it? If people get to know that and appreciate that, that sort of sets the appetite for lunch. Oh my God. It's good.
Oh my God. It's really good. Just try it. Well, I should have told y'all too. Anybody who don't eat my soup won't get spoons next time.
You know, I always try everything you bring. Every
As long as you try it. I didn't say eat it. I said as long as you try it.
Try it. We'll make you have to try it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Too late. All right, y'all. Let's go do this one. My favorite part of the day.
If they have that skill and that knowledge, it will be passed on to the next generation. This will be a healthy family that's producing healthy kids. Now we got a healthy community. Oh my God, we got a healthy nation.
We're right now in the midst of writing a memo for the USDA, and I would love to bounce that off you, because what I'd love to do is have us echoing each other so that USDA is getting the same kind of data you're giving to the White House. Meeting with USDA officials who are directly involved in the decision-making around grant applications that we've submitted, that we're going to pass out to the partners of Roots of Change who are doing really interesting work. If we're going to be a movement, we have to think about how to language. The language becomes a way of seeing the journey to a new place.
We're working to combine the NGO, Department of Ag in California, the Department of Health, and the Department of Education to bring to bear about $10 million of money from, hopefully, the CDC in order to really leverage and get really good food to low-income families through the farmers markets, because we're doing this double voucher program.
When you change a paradigm, you have to reconceptualize it. You have to think differently to create the world differently. The other big piece is to bounce the thinking off people, and that happens in meetings.
So what I have here basically is a report that grew out of the policy that was created for San Francisco, which is a regional food policy, which the city is going to commit to bioregion with its buying power. It's going to develop up to 40 urban farms in the city.
Talking about an idea, the struggle over what do we really mean by the reintegration of human beings into the natural world as manifested in the food system. But that has to be bounced off other people. If it just stays up in one person's head or a bunch of people in their own silos, then it doesn't mean anything. You have to bounce the ideas and create synthesis in the way people think.
Connect at a local level. I think that we probably have a sympathetic audience over there, so I'll give it a good pitch.
That would be great.
And then they get to have the conversation at USDA, and then they're going to have with the Congress. Eventually, all that thinking, which begins in all those different rooms on people's computers, ends up becoming written into law over time. That's what it's about. That's the system of how society changes, I think. That's how I conceptualize it.
There are possibilities in this city. You know, Oakland has high unemployment in a lot of these neighborhoods. And as I said, there's tremendous spending power there that, if captured, could be put into jobs, local jobs in the community. And one of the key challenges that we've experienced in terms of barriers is this issue of scaling. How to actually scale the models that we see beginning to work at the ground level, that are starting to take root, that are starting to integrate into a more comprehensive solution. When we looked at our performance as one single small organization, we found that over almost 7 years of work, time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, budget, and staff, we had met less than 1% of demand in the community. Less than 1% of total demand in the community. And that was for me a very significant wake-up call to the imperative of scale, that there are grassroots innovative models that need to get traction, that need to get bigger. But we've hit the ceilings. As practitioners at the grassroots level, we've hit the ceilings again and again and seen, oh, policy is major.
You know, we're doing all this work for sustainable agriculture, and it works. And yes, these are still small islands of sustainability. Even if you're more resistant, more resilient, more sustainable, spread the wealth better, feed more people, employ more people, it won't make a difference if the food system is not democratized. It's not enough just to be a good farmer. In fact, you also need to be an advocate and an activist. You need to create the political will in order to make the changes that you need.
It's a political change, it's social and political. And the only people that are going to change that is social movements, massive social movements that are not necessarily revolutionary armed struggle movements, but are movements that can make changes because of the pressures that are putting on the local politicians and also that they're putting their own politicians in power.
I feel like people in this country act like the only thing you can do to be political is vote for a new president every 4 years. So I'm always interested in how do you get people to see themselves as more than consumers, to see themselves as political actors in every aspect of every day of their lives. And that's why having a garden or participating even better in a community garden where you're working with other people, that's directly engaging in that struggle. You're directly growing food, making this positive change, as well as challenging the things you don't like.
This isn't something one legislates, even though it entails legislation and policy and whatnot. It's something which is socially learned. And that means sharing our knowledge, sharing our experiences. As people move towards food sovereignty, they not only have to share amongst themselves, they have to share with others. How did they do this? How did you do that?
That's where comes a new concept called the food sovereignty concept, which is basically a concept of not only food security, not only access to food, but also to provide all the resources that people need in order to have food. That is land, that is the seeds of the crops that are not patented, the local seeds that have been preserved, the water, and the education and the human capital, everything that is needed, all those components have to be present.
In other words, you need to have control over the food system so that the people who are doing the things that work can actually have a chance. And the other people who say, hey, that's great, let's do that, actually have a voice.
I like to refer to the Occupy moment, not the Occupy movement, because I think that we've all been working towards different projects. The food justice projects that have been happening before Occupy, they're going to keep going, and now they're just inspired and influenced by the tactics and the models and the rhetoric of the Occupy movement. Now we're at this Occupy moment where we're able to take that opening where people are actually having to discuss these issues and confront them. Even people in power who don't want to discuss these issues are having to deal with them.
Things are happening, it's like seeds being planted. The mass population doesn't know there is this bubbling coming up. And the longer this goes on, the more people will join and see the common cause that we all have.
We're not going to be able to just wait for the senators to realize that food justice is important, or for the president to decide that Monsanto's dollars for his campaign are not as worth it as his constituents' voice. We know where power really lies. Power lies in people. And we intend to start slowly, but certainly taking back the power we know we have from those who have been deciding arbitrarily that they are the ones who know what's best for us. We're doing it with diverse communities, trying to do it openly and transparently, and hopefully create some of the structures that we want to see exist in our future democratic, ecological, economically just society, but also have a good time while we're doing it, grow some food for some people, be out in the sun working together. I think there's so many ways in which this kind of action defines both the opposition to the things that are wrong and the creation of what's right.
This is lateral, and it's growing outward, and there's more and more people involved every time. And so this is just a small microcosm of what I hope can grow into a bigger political system in this country. Am I too lofty? Yeah. Too idealistic, so what? I love it. I love the way it feels here.
What I want to tell folks is, we're not alone. We're not the minority. We're not the fringe. We're the cutting edge. And there's cutting edges all over the globe.
I need to constantly remind myself that the world's always been crazy, that people have always lived in crazy times, because you look around and it seems nuts. And I went from the peak oil, I am going to escape to the country, I just need to learn how to grow food first, to the only place we're going to solve these issues is the city.
I feel like I'm part of a large group of people who are
we're trying to steer a boat through an incredible storm. And there are a lot of people in mainstream agriculture and organic agriculture and industrial food systems, even in those places, I come across lots of people who see the same problems and want to deal with it. And so I have lots of hope when I see that. It's good.
We have to find lots of ways to rediscover that food can connect us to the earth, to animals, to plants, to our families, to our friends, to the farmers, to all the hands that bring that food to us. It's just assumed in so many societies that you won't eat without acknowledging that whole web of connection that every plate of food has.
We changed it all, and I'm thinking the basic tenet of life is to wake up in the morning, work really hard growing food, share the work and the experience with your community and your family, come home, prepare a harvested meal, a great, well-cooked meal, and have fun and laughter. That's the day, that's the life, that's what it was about. We've added too many things to it. And that's why a lot of us are ill, we don't take care of and eat the food that we're supposed to eat. It's a huge mushroom, boy.
It's an old saying, if you keep doing the same thing you're doing, you're going to get what you got. And that's what society is going to happen to society. It'll keep having this crazy cycle of violence, crazy cycle of disparity, inequity, injustice. When you try to do the right thing, but you forsake your interests for the betterment of your fellow man, that's a proper cause. And that's how you fight bad with the good. You fight evil with love. And so that's what we try to do. Test this drive, okay?
Thank you, Leon.
Thank you so much for your patience this evening, and I'm really glad we took Wanda first because we learned a lot about what's going on right in our backyard here. And I'd like to bring Wanda back up again, and people can make their comments or questions about the film and also what Wanda has presented to us. And we'll see how we might further work on developing our local agriculture as a group. So Wanda, if you'll come up.
Just because Paloma asked me about that quote that was at the end of my thing, and the whole quote.
Would you read it on mic?
Yeah. Got it. I got it. The whole quote says, "Healers are spiritual warriors who have found the courage to defeat the darkness of their souls, awakening and rising from the depths of their deepest fears like a phoenix rising from the ashes, reborn with the wisdom and strength that creates a light that shines bright enough to help, encourage, and inspire others out of their own darkness." Melanie Kors. Melanie Kors. K-O, I can't see it. We gotta find out. Yeah, I'm not with So I was amazed because I was seeing all kinds of people I knew in that film. And sitting there going, and why haven't you ever talked to Joy more about this? I asked somebody what this film was about, and they said it was a very hopeful piece. And that's the way I feel to see my friends and neighbors up there doing it is great. So, yay. I want to go find all the people in the film there. Questions? Or
It's all in Oakland, all these fields and stuff like that.
I think the Alameda is on the freeway by San Francisco.
It's off this way.
The alternative school that she mentioned was in Berkeley. It's right next to
Right at Martin Luther King and Derby. Right. And then the guy with the goats lives, he was actually on the tour as well, and he said, Sam Hoffman. Yeah. And he is remarkable. Just a remarkable soul. Then with that, I would just then invite all of you all to come see me, come see anybody, support your local farmers. Please, please, please come to the Freedom Farmers Market. We got coupons for you. We'd love to share our produce.
And where is it, Wanda?
So the Freedom Farmers Market is on Telegraph Avenue, just north of Claremont. So it's 5316 Telegraph Avenue. We're there every Saturday from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And I've got flyers and all of that over there if you're interested in that.
And I put the coupons on the tables.
And we got coupons.
I put some coupons in each table so you can get your coupons to take to the farmer's market with you. One of the people that Wanda mentioned in her talk, Victory Lee, will be here next month. And she's going to be doing a film called Newman, The Wonder of Healing Plants. And she'll draw on her African American and Indian American roots, Native American roots, and also her skill as a master gardener and herbalist. And she'll be teaching us about how we can heal our bodies with the plants that are all around us. And it's going to be a really wonderful night. So,
my favorite thing from Victory, plant garlic with your strawberries. And I did not believe her. I said, my strawberries don't taste like anything. She said, plant garlic in them. And I did it, and they're remarkable. Great companion plant.
And Victory started community gardens all over the Bay Area. And she has a wonderful garden out at Lake Merritt that you go and visit sometime.
And also there's one of her gardens is where the farmer's market is. So if you're also interested in a place to do some community gardening, we've got that. You get to harvest when you work, just like Miss Joy Moore said. And we'll give you a tour of that garden too when you come to the market.
I wish everybody would just give Wanda a great big hand. And all of her friends came with her. I really appreciate you being in the show. And that would be great to mention to this night. So thanks everybody. We also here in Berkeley are having a crop swap Monday nights at 6:30.